All right, hello everybody. Sorry I can't be here today. We are going to be doing sprite animation for our platformer game, and you might not have a sprite sheet ready to go for that. If you don't, then we're going to use the basic what's his name, Mega Man sprite sheet. I know it says Super Mario on the game. This is Mega Man was the only one I could find on short notice, so we'll use that one. But don't worry, we're going to have a program called Shoebox. This is what it looks like here, that we're going to use to chop up our own sprite sheets. So for homework, you will want to download a sprite sheet from Google. There is just Google sprite sheet, and you could look for a specific character like Mario, and a bunch of stuff will come up. These are sprite sheets here. It looks like a whole bunch of still frames of the animation, and they're all broken up. Try and choose one that has a single color as a background. I think you'd be hard pressed to find anything different. And we could use Shoebox to chop all those things up so that they're all in separate images. But if you have the code down, then it doesn't really matter what images you choose. So these are sprite sheets. There's a great, all these things are blocked, unfortunately, at the school, so you have to do it for homework or stick with Mega Man. There's a great website called Spriters Resource. Spriters, am I spelling that right? SpritersResource.com, but it's blocked. But here's the website address. I'm trying to zoom here. So if you go home and take a look at that website, you will find just about every single sprite resource that you can imagine. So there it is. We'll take a look now and see how we're making all this happen. So first of all, we're going to be making arrays that'll hold the P images, or the images of our character running, and you can find these images soon in the handout folder. We'll put it under the tile set folder, and this is just an example of all the images. I believe they'll need a little bit of trimming, so take a look and see what those images look like. But those are, it doesn't need to be done today. So you're going to make different arrays for their different actions. You'll have a run array, and there'll probably be a run right and a run left. I think will be the easiest way to do it. I haven't quite decided. There's going to be a method that will reverse the images, so you don't have to have a left run and a right run. I'm trying to improve it a little bit though, because it's not quite perfect. So just worry about getting your character to run in one direction, which would be to the right, I suppose, right now, because the characters are designed to run to the right. So you're going to make an array of those images. I just chose 3 pictures from the sprite sheet that will be the running. Let's go and take a look at what are some of the things you'll need for that. So you don't need this. I actually loaded all of the sprites into a single array, so you're not going to need to do that. I wrote some code to cut them out myself, but you don't need to cut them out. So don't worry about making a giant P image array, but you should make a P image array for sort of your different actions. And there's also, I have a P image array for the idle action, so that when it's not doing anything, just kind of standing there, and also sort of a jumping action. We're probably not going to be using these as arrays, and I'll talk a bit about that later on, but definitely your running needs to be an array, and just worry about running to the right today. Yeah, so that's going to work out. And then we have this current action array, and this is an array that actually will not have anything loaded in it. It'll just be a null pointer, and what we'll do is we'll point it to the appropriate array. So we'll make it point to run left, we'll make it point to run, or in this example we'll make it point to idle or jump as well when we actually go and do those actions. Last but not least, we have a costume num variable, which is an integer. It keeps track of the index of the current image that we're showing in that current frame of animation. And I'm using the word costume num as a shout out to Scratch, so these people that did Scratch in grade 9, that'll be a reference that makes sense. Otherwise, basically it just means the index that points to the current image in that frame of animation for your characters. So you're going to have to load all this stuff up. It'll take a bit of time. Yeah, so you'll make your arrays, and you have to choose how big they'll be. So that will be, I guess we should probably just take a look at that first. So make sure you are doing these steps here to create them. You'll notice my idle array has a single image in it. My jump array has a single image in it. That's pretty inefficient. Probably should just be using a p image variable at that point. I left that because some people will want to have an idle animation where the character taps its foot or does something funny as it's just kind of standing there. And same with jump. Some people want to animate the jump. So this will be useful for those people. For most part, I think most people will not do that, but this is an option that we'll leave open. Yeah, so that's good. You have to make your p-image arrays. And then you'll want to fill them with p-images. And I load everything into this Mega Man Sprite array, so you won't need to do that. Instead, you'll just load images. I'll show you right here. So you just load image, and then take a look at all the images you have. They're all called Mega Man, I believe. Yeah, Mega Man 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. So just look at which one is the right one. So Mega Man, say it's 1.png, and this one will be Mega Man 2.png, and so on. So you can just simply load these directly into the arrays. Of course, that won't work for me right now, so I'll undo it so I can still run my program. Then we choose what our current action is. And remember, current action is an array. So is idle. So is run and run left. So you can sort of choose what current action is going to be by setting it to the appropriate array of costumes. So when we start the game, it's probably going to be idle. In other words, it's not doing anything. You can set it to run when you want it to run when you want it to run. You can set it to jump when you want to jump, and so on. And then the story is that instead of animating, run or jump or idle, we always just animate current action. That array is the one we're always cycling through, and it just changes form. It just points to different arrays. So we'll take a look at an example of how that works. We'll zip down. I recommend before you get all the details worked out for the character, just test your lovely sprites that they're working. This is just me using the image function to draw to the screen the cycle of animation. So that's why when I run this program, I'll just look at this. Oh, Super Mario. Surprise, it's Mega Man. Whoops, you see this big Mega Man over here doing his constant running. That's just me testing to make sure it's working. So you probably want to do something like that too, just to make sure you have your animation cycle. So this is just in the draw function. Eventually you'll comment it out. It's just a testing. And then here's an example of how I'm assigning the actions. So whenever I press left key or right key, just assigning current action to the array that is appropriate for this task. So for example, I'm pressing the left key, so I set current action to run left. And if I'm pressing the right key, I set the current action to run, which I now think I should rename to be run right. Because otherwise it doesn't make much sense. Right now, don't worry about the difference between left and right, because that code for reversing the images, I mean, you can just do it in Photoshop, I guess, but that's it's not really something we have ready to go at the moment. So for today, I mean, if you have time, you can figure it out, but for today, I imagine you won't have time. So just worry about running in one direction in terms of your animations. So I would just do it like that. And then I have, hey, if you're not pressing the left or the right key, then you set current action to idle. And resetting costume number to 0 is probably a good idea for all of these things. So when you start the action, you begin from the beginning frame. So we'll just do something like this. So this is us sort of assigning what our current action is, what set of pictures defines that. and just saying we're going to start from the beginning. And then further down, here is the actual animation code. So we're just using the fbox function attach image, and we're just attaching the costume number of our current animation from the current action. And of course, current action might be jump, it might be idle, it might be run, there's all sorts of possibilities, but we don't really care. We've already determined that stuff, so we can just trust it and just animate from whatever current action is. We have some frame count stuff so that we don't animate too slow or too fast, and feel free to experiment with these numbers. 10 is probably too much. I had it at 10, 510 is definitely too much. 10, I just wanted to see the animation sort of go through. You can decide what the right number is for your project. And of course, if we are going up, costume number is always increasing. Eventually it's going to get to the end of the array. So I have just an if statement to see if it ever gets to the end of the array, which is, you can use current action dot length to figure out how many things are in the array. They might be different, right? Run has more actions, more images than jump or idle does, for example. So, we don't know what the length is, so we'll just use the array to tell us what the length is. Then we just reset it back to 0. This is actually not the most elegant way to do that, and I will, if you were looking for a challenge, think about the modulus operator, good old modulus. How can we use that to just make sure we never go beyond the length of the array? We can do this all in one line instead of doing it in 3 lines. But I'll leave that up to you guys to figure out. This is a perfectly fine way to do it if you don't have, if you're not sure about that. But we'll take a look at that when I get back. So, that's quite a bit of stuff to already get working for your character. It's it is going to take a while for us to get all the actions that we want. If you get done this, however, then there are some other things that you could do that are fairly simple. So, for example, our jumping action. In some ways, if you're not going to animate it, there's a really simple way of doing the jumping. Instead of using the array of things, if you just have one costume for jumping and landing, then you can just use your y velocity to determine if it should be the jumping up costume or the falling down costume. And I maybe some of you are more knowledgeable than I, but I can't remember if open Photoshop. I can't remember if the animation for Mega Man jumping up and down is different, but pretty much you can use your y velocity to determine if you should just be attaching a jumping up or a jumping down animation. And if your y velocity is 0, then you can think about whether the costume should be idle or running left or running right. So that's something that'll be coming up. And you know what? That's actually a pretty sophisticated set of animations right there, even though it's not incredibly complex. So give that a shot today. Next class when I'm back, we'll take a look at this and I'll have a fully working example that you guys can compare. If you can get it working though, then that's fantastic, because then you can start animating other things like your enemies. Alright, thanks everybody. We will see you next week.